Your opinion is worthless, and in the next few minutes, you're finally going to learn how to think for yourself. At home and at school, parents and teachers always tell us what to think, but they never teach us how to think. Knowing what to think is relatively easy. Our parents, teachers, tutors, authors of books, and so on, each and every one of them is a dictator in their own way. Each wants us to think according to their dictates, their demands, their theories, their prejudices. Mental dictators abound like weeds. Everywhere there is a perverse tendency to enslave the minds of others, to bottle them up, to force them to live within fixed norms, prejudices, and systems. The thousands and millions of mental dictators have never wanted to respect anyone's mental freedom. If someone does not think like them, they are labeled as perverse, renegade, ignorant. Everyone wants to dominate everyone else. Everyone wants to crush the intellectual freedom of others. No one wants to respect another person's freedom of thought. Everyone believes themselves to be wise, intelligent, extraordinary, and naturally desires that others be like them, think like them, and take them as a model. The mind has been abused far too much. Observe merchants and their propaganda through newspapers, radio, television, and so on. Commercial propaganda is carried out in a dictatorial way. Buy this soap, these shoes, so many dollars. Buy today, immediately. Do not wait. Do not postpone it until tomorrow. Do it now, and so on. The only thing missing is for them to say that if you do not obey, you will be imprisoned or killed. The father tries to force his ideas into his son. And the school teacher scolds, punishes, and gives bad grades if the boy or girl does not accept their dictatorial ideas. Half of humanity wants to enslave the minds of the other half. This tendency to tyrannize the minds of others becomes obvious when we study the dark pages of history. There have been, and still are, bloody dictatorships everywhere that seek to enslave entire populations. Bloody regimes that dictate what people must think. Woe to the one who tries to think freely. They will inevitably be sent to a concentration camp, to Siberia, to prison, to forced labor, into exile, to the gallows, the guillotine, or execution by firing squad. Neither teachers, nor parents, nor books want to teach how to think. What people enjoy is forcing others to think as they believe one should think, and it is clear that in this regard, everyone is a dictator in their own way. Everyone is convinced they have the final word. Everyone firmly believes that all others must think like them because they themselves are the best, the most superior. Parents, teachers, and bosses constantly reprimand their subordinates. This tendency of humanity to disrespect others, to violate the minds of others, to cage, imprison, enslave, and chain the thoughts of others is terrifying and horrible. The husband wants to force his doctrine and ideas into his wife's mind, and the wife wants to do the same. It often happens that couples divorce due to incompatibility of ideas. Spouses fail to understand the need to respect each other's intellectual freedom. Neither has the right to enslave the other's mind. Each deserves respect. Each has the right to think as they wish, to practice their religion, to belong to the political party of their choice. At school, children are forced to think certain things, to adopt certain ideas, often through coercion, but they are not taught how to use the mind. The minds of children are tender, flexible, and malleable, while the minds of the elderly are fixed, hardened like clay in a mold. They no longer change. They cannot change. The minds of children and young people, however, are capable of great transformation. They can change. Children and young people can be taught how to think. It is very difficult to teach older people how to think because they remain as they are until death. It is very rare to encounter an elderly person interested in radically changing. People's minds are shaped from childhood. That is what parents and school teachers prefer and want. They like to mold the minds of children and young people. A mind placed into a mold becomes a conditioned, enslaved mind. It is necessary for teachers to break the chains of the mind. It is urgent that teachers learn to guide children's minds toward true freedom so they will no longer be enslaved. It is essential that teachers teach their students how to think. Teachers must understand the necessity of guiding their students along the path of analysis, meditation, and understanding. A truly understanding person must never accept anything dogmatically. It is essential to investigate first, to inquire, to understand before accepting. In other words, there is no need to accept anything, but rather to investigate, analyze, meditate, and understand. When understanding is complete, acceptance is unnecessary. There is no use filling our minds with intellectual information if, after leaving school, we still do not know how to think and continue, like living automatons, like machines, repeating the same routines as our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. To always repeat the same things, to live a mechanical life, from home to work, from work to home to marry, and become machines for producing children, is not living. And if that is the reason we study, if that is why we spend 10 or 15 years in school, college, and university, then it would be better not to study at all. Mahatma Gandhi was a very unique man. Protestant pastors would often sit at his door for hours trying to convert him to Christianity in its Protestant form. Gandhi did not accept their teachings, but he did not reject them either. He understood them. He respected them, that was all. The Mahatma often said, "I am Brahmin, Jew, Christian, Muslim," and so on. He understood that all religions are necessary because they all convey the same eternal values. The act of accepting or rejecting any doctrine or concept reveals a lack of mental maturity. When we reject or accept something, it means we have not understood it. Where there is understanding, acceptance, or rejection becomes unnecessary. The mind that believes, the mind that does not believe, the mind that doubts, is an ignorant mind. The path of wisdom does not consist of believing, not believing, or doubting. The path of wisdom consists of inquiring, analyzing, meditating, and experiencing. Truth is the unknown from moment to moment. Truth has nothing to do with what we believe or cease to believe, nor with skepticism. Truth is not a matter of accepting or rejecting something. Truth is a matter of experiencing, testing, and understanding. Teachers must ultimately direct all their efforts toward one goal, leading their students to the experience of the real, of the true. It is urgent that teachers abandon this ancient and harmful tendency to shape the flexible and malleable minds of children. It is absurd that adults, filled with prejudices, passions, and outdated preconceptions, violently impose their stale and obsolete ideas onto the minds of children and adolescents. It is better to respect the intellectual freedom of students, to respect their mental agility and creative spontaneity. Teachers have no right to imprison the minds of students. What is fundamental is not to dictate to the mind what it must think, but to fully teach it how to think. The mind is the instrument of knowledge, and it is necessary that teachers teach their students the wise use of this instrument. It was Elias Crow.